Hey Papercrafters, welcome to another Design with Joe video. I'm Joanne Rogers, a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Central Alberta, Canada, and I've been designing with you in mind since 1999. Today I have another Joe Tips video for you. This one is all about how you create ombre. And you may not know what that term is, but I'm going to explain what it is and I'm going to show you a couple examples. So this is an example of paper that is ombre. So what it means is that you have a darker image or a darker layer or palette of color down on the bottom, and then it gradually gets lighter or lighter, or it goes in reverse. It goes lighter to darker. And you can do this with one color, like is on this piece of paper, which is Blackberry Bliss, or you can do it with multiple colors. So I want to show you, rather than you having to buy ombre paper, how you can do it, and how you can do it in 3 different ways. So let's get started. This is the first way I want to show you. I'm going to do it first of all just on a piece of plain basic white, just showing you with one color. And I'm just going to move these 2 out of the way. I'm working with greens right now, and I have a piece of paper, and this is our sponge roller. It's a brayer. So it is a sponge here that you can just run under water to clean, and you can tell it looks sort of pink underneath it, but that pink does not transfer because that just sort of stained it, which is cool. Okay, it still works fine. So we're going to use this first. And what we're going to do is we are just going to hold on to our stamp pad and we are going to roll our brayer over top. And then you pick up color all the way around rather than rolling like this where you're only going to get color in one spot. So get it all the way around, and then all you're going to do is roll it back and forth over your paper. Okay, and so you can see I'm going to put my light at the top. And so you just need to ink up every once in a while, put my light at the top, and I'm just going to get darker as I go to the bottom. So this is a really quick way that you can get light to dark, which is exactly what ombre is. It's that simple. And you can do this with color. You can do this with dyes. You can do different layers of different colored dyes. But you can see how it's getting darker. So if there is a little bit of a break where it's not really seamlessly flowing, just go over it, but get a little bit lighter with your touch. So just a little lighter with your touch as you're going. And if you want a little bit darker, just go darker. So I'm using a really light color here. This is soft seafoam, and it has, it takes a little bit to lay down that color. Okay, so that's how you can create it just on one piece of paper. Now I'm going to show you just a little technique using that exact same way of doing it, except I'm going to use 3 different colors. So what I've done is I've cut out the largest layering circle on a piece of window sheet, and I'm going to put that in the middle of my card. And then I'm just going to hold that down with some washi tape. And then I'm just going to go over top again. So I'm going to start with my lightest. You always want to start with your lightest color. And I'm going to go right over top. And I'm just going to go back and forth a couple times just to lay down a little bit of that same green. So I've got a little bit down there. Now I'm going to go into my next color, which is Pear Pizzazz. So this is 1 shade darker. And I'm just going to lightly go over top at first because I don't want to have a really hard break there. But it's going to be a little bit darker. And I'm not going to go right over the very bottom. I'm going to try and get a really seamless kind of transition from one to the other. So it goes light and then it goes just gradually darker. So I'm using a fairly light touch here. And now I'm going to go in with some Old Olive, pick it up, and I'm going to start at the top with my Old Olive. Now my piece of window sheet is a little bit bigger than my piece of paper, which is what you want here because you don't want to be getting any ink on the top of your paper. Okay, and just roll that over, and what you're going to get is just a really seamless movement from your light to your dark. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the card that goes along with that one. So here it is here. So you've just created a background. You can do this in any color that you want. And then I've used a pop of color here, and this is our Positive Thoughts stamp set and dies. So there's how you can add it into your design. You can either use it as a complete card, so one, and I could have just put my dies on top of that, or with the background. So let me show you another way. The second way I want to show you is using our blending brushes. And these are a relatively new tool with Stampin' Up! And they have hundreds of little bristles here, and they're very soft, and it is in a curved shape. And this is a handle that has some flexibility to it. And I tend to use mine further down, closer to the head. And then I keep a few of these just by different color family. So we're going to create yellow here, use yellow here. I have an embossed piece of basic white done with the wild roses, and it is black embossing powder. And I'm going to show you why you want to use embossing powder after I show you the technique. So similar, we're going to start with our lightest color. So I have So Saffron, I have Daffodil Delight, and I have Crushed Curry. And I'm just going to tap right into my So Saffron, and I'm just going to tap off. You can see I've done this before. And then you're just going to swirl your color right on. And I'm going to start off on my paper, and I'm going to come in, and I'm just going to give it some color. I'm going to give it a little bit more of my So Saffron, which is my lightest yellow. And then I'm going to go into my Daffodil Delight. There's not really any reason to tap this off because you're going into a darker color, which is why we always start with our lightest first, because we don't want to get our lighter pads dirty with darker color. So just tap that off every single time. And you can see that this is a little bit of a brighter yellow than the So Saffron was. And so it takes just a little bit more time probably than using the sponge brayer, but it does give you a different look. So if you have these are a great tool that, whoops, I didn't tap that one off. And the reason why I tap off is I don't want a big splotch of color in any one place. So you can see that I've gone from my lighter into my darker. I'm going to go into my Crushed Curry now, turn this around, and I'm going to come in from the side again. I always like to come in from the side because then I'm not getting one big huge bush of color, one big huge amount of color in any one area. So you can see that that's got just a little bit of darker tone to it again over the Daffodil Delight. So you can go over this as many times as you want. Now what I want to show you is what happens if you don't emboss it. Okay, so we're going to do that. I'm going to show you one more thing you need to do with this first. So this is one where I just used the Memento ink pad, and it's not nearly as impressive as this one for sure. And what also happened is I picked up a lot of the black on my blending brush as I was doing this. So I don't recommend doing it just over plain black. You will want to give it a little bit of a shot with your having some embossing powder on there. So then what you do need to do is once you've put color on there, because that's plastic, the embossing powder is plastic, you need to go over and you need to pick up any ink that's sitting on top of the plastic. And I'll turn this over in just a minute so you can see. So you can see that you actually pick up a fair bit of ink. So that's what you want to do to move from your lighter to your darker. And I could probably go in with a little bit more dark there, but I want to show you the card that I made with that. So this one here, exactly the same technique here. So lighter on the bottom, going in much, and you can see that I went in quite a bit darker with my Crushed Curry on this card right here. Now, just before I go to the next technique, I want to tell you how to clean these as well. So there's a couple ways you can clean them. One, you don't think that this would work, but actually if you just take it and you roll it over top of your paper, eventually it's going to get to the point where it's not going to have any more yellow. It's gone quite a bit lighter here. And if I keep it in the same color family, then I'm not too worried. I'm going to pick this up and use it for my next yellow. What you can do is you can once in a while actually run this under the faucet again, and you'll see the ink flow out of it, and then just let that dry and make sure it's completely dry before you use it for your blending again. Now the next technique. Now, what if you don't have the brayer and you don't have the blending brushes? You can also use a sponge. So I've taken one of our sponges and I've cut it into 6, and then I've attached the color that I'm going to use, and I keep these by color. So I will keep this and reserve reserve it for my Pacific Point. And so I have Balmy Blue, I have Misty Moonlight, and I have Pacific Point. And I've just pre-embossed in white this time, the Butterfly Brilliance. So I want to show you the exact same technique. Now this one here, you might get a little bit of ink on you, but it's exactly the same. So I'm just swirling some color over top with the sponges. I find that I need to go in and pick up my color a fair bit doing this. So I am not using, I'm taking some blues. They're all blues this time, but I am using different tones of blue. So you don't have to stick just to the same tones like we did with the yellow. So here I am just pulling it in and swirling it over top. What you may find is that you'll get a little bit of an edge around your paper. I'm going to go in now and I'm going to pick up a little bit of my Misty Moonlight. I am going to tap this off just a little bit just to see how much ink I actually have in there. And I'm using a fairly light touch, always in a swirling motion. Okay, and just go right over top. And you can see I'm just blending lightly into that balmy blue. And it's a little bit harder to do this and get it without having a visible mark where you change from one color to the other, I find, with the sponges. So you just want to have a really light touch. Always start off your paper and move in. And your different colors are going to give you different kinds of looks too. I'm just going to go across here a little bit more. I want that just a little bit darker. And now I'm going to go in with my Pacific Point. So here's my Pacific Point. Again, this is a darker color. I want to make sure that I'm going to come in from the top this time so I can see how much I'm laying down. So it really is a cool technique to go over top of white embossing. So just swirl it, swirl it, swirl it, as opposed to going back and forth like this. That's not going to give you as nice, soft results. So you can see I've got 3 different tones of blue for this one. And this last one, Pacific Point, really has a bright color to it. Okay, so now if I wanted to, I could go back in. I'm not going to be damaging any of my colors by going back in and just blending out a little bit from the Misty Moonlight right into the Pacific Point. And I can even go back if I want. I don't really need to, I don't think, but I can even go back and I can do a little bit more of the balmy blue into. So you're going to find with your lightest color, it always takes the most time. So I'm just going to also take my piece of paper towel, or if you have a Kleenex, and just get rid of that blue, and you'll see the white really pick up here. Okay, so that creates a really cool background, different tones this time, and let me show you the card for that one. So this is the card for that one. So what I did is I actually cut out our butterflies. So there's one big die that will cut out those butterflies. And then I mounted them on a piece of the Pacific Point for this one. And it really makes the white pop off. So thanks very much for joining me. I hope that gives you a few different ideas on how you can incorporate ombre in your stamping and how they can add a really cool touch of different color to your stamping and your paper crafting. So if you've got a paper crafting question niggling at you, please drop me a line at joe@designwithjoe.ca and let's see if we can figure it out. I hope you found the tip useful, and if you did, please click on the subscribe button now. And if you're not on my mailing list, pop on over to www.designwithjoe.ca and get yourself signed up. You get a free gift when you do. Bye-bye.